I'm not even going to beat around the bush. I had a good time with this one. Whether you like remakes or even if you don't, this one is a fun time. And before I get into the review itself, for those of you who have just stumbled into my review for the first time, welcome. I am your friendly neighborhood Baba Duchess, and for those of you who are repeat viewers, welcome back. As always, I'm going to keep this relatively spoiler-free. This movie takes the original Silent Night, Deadly Night and adapts it into some really interesting ways. You have the overall story of a Santa wreaking havoc, but you're mixing in a little bit of Dexter and the movie Frailty, which if you haven't seen, I highly recommend, and an inner voice done in a Venom character-like style.
Way I see it, we can do whatever we want.
This movie does still follow Billy, whose parents were killed by a Santa on Christmas Eve. But instead of like the original movie where they really build the character of Billy and you really get to know him and all this past trauma, which really they spend a good probably half an hour of the original movie just getting into that before he ever even swings his axe. But here, when we meet the adult Billy, he is already a serial killer. So this movie kind of starts at the end of the original and works its way back to tell us the story of Billy and how he ended up doing these things. Rowan Campbell is great as Billy, and honestly, I thought he was really good as Corey in Halloween Ends. I mean, I understand why people don't like that film, but I thought his performance was really good, and I'm glad to see him doing more stuff in the horror genre. Like I said, we do get the infamous scene with Billy in the backseat of his parents' car after having visited Billy's grandpa in the nursing home. And then we catch up with Billy many years later at the scene of one of his crimes. He's got the Santa suit, he's got the axe, and now he has a little advent calendar that he will put a drop of blood in for every kill. I really liked that addition. And while we're establishing a little bit about Billy, we do hear like that, the best way I can describe it is like in the movie Venom, where he has this other voice talking to him that he interacts with.
We are drunk.
So he's leaving the scene of this latest crime, gets on a bus, falls asleep, and then wakes up in this small town. Stops at a diner, notices a pretty girl, and decides he's going to stay for a while. And this is very much against the advice of the voice in his head. He becomes interested in this woman named Pam, who is played by Ruby Modine, and you may remember her in the movie Happy Death Day. She's really good in this, and the chemistry between them is excellent. So, of course, she's kind of brushing him off at first, and then he decides he's going to apply for a job at this little kind of country store where she works. Her father owns it, and they are looking for a stock person cashier. And I like this little nod to the original Ira's Toys. This one's called Ida's Trinket Tree, and I imagine they changed this because toy stores just aren't what they were, especially in the original Silent Night, Deadly Night. I know I'm old when I can count off all these really great toy stores from my youth that are just no more.
I was there 3,000 years ago.
So yes, we get the nods to the original. He's working in the toy store as a stock person. And then, of course, he ends up having to play Santa. And what's interesting about this is now in the original, this is what really kind of kicks off Billy's spree. But here he's already established as a serial killer. So again, working with some of the material from the original, but kind of twisting it a little bit. There are lots of nods to the original in this one. They even use a couple of the songs that were featured, like Christmas Fever and Santa's Watching. So it's as much a tribute to the original as it is reinventing it a little bit. And ultimately, I think that's what makes it a successful remake. Once upon a time, I was pretty much against remakes, but I've changed my tune over the years, and it's because of movies like this that do it right, where you are taking the general outline of the story. So it is still Silent Night, Deadly Night, but you are doing something different with it. Where, in the original one, we just followed Billy right along in his story. In this one, it really just kind of drops you into it, with the exception of that one, flashback to when he was a kid. So here, similar story, just a different structure. And yes, lots of kills. It wasn't as gory as I thought it was going to be, and that's not to say that it's not gory. It is. I try not to read too much about movies before I go in to see them, but for some reason, I just had it in my head that this was just going to be, not quite Terrifier levels, but up there. And that's not a bad thing at all. That was just my own expectation. So Billy's in this strange small town, and there's also this subplot of the Snatcher where kids have been going missing in and around this area. And what I thought was an interesting change from the first one, we really see Billy wrestling with some of what he's doing. It almost seems like more of a compulsion than just this outright bloodthirsty insanity. While I do think Billy is a sympathetic character in the original until he goes on his spree, this one right along, you can't quite put your finger on it, but this is more than just a psycho Santa. The voice in Billy's head is the one that seems to be calling the shots. He's the one that picks out who Billy is going to go after next. There seems to be some kind of moral code that we just haven't figured out yet. It doesn't justify what Billy's doing as we're watching it, but at the same time, we know there is just something else going on, and we just don't have that information. I will say that, though, with the exception of one particular kill, I do appreciate a movie that knows that a certain party that rose to prominence in 30s and 40s Germany is bad. And I just liked seeing Billy go nuts with that. I don't know when in this country that some people decided that those people from that particular Germany party are okay. Most of us still know that they are not. And this movie knows that they are not, and it goes there. But while Billy is still doing this, he and Pam are getting closer and closer. And he's starting to think, maybe I don't really want to do this anymore. Maybe I don't have to do this anymore. And Pam has her own anger issues as well. So they seem to understand each other in a way. And their relationship is quite sweet. So you have your killer Santa, you have a love story in there, and all the while taking material that has been done before, but yet turning it in a new way. I think my biggest criticism was it felt a little long. I mean, it's only an hour and 39 minutes, but towards the end, I was starting to feel it. But really, if that's the worst thing I can say about it, we're doing pretty good. 3.5 top hats. They also ended it in a way that this could be a very interesting franchise if they decide to go that way. And if they can keep the energy from this one and the creativity from this one, I'm all for a new franchise. I mean, Lord knows the original series is pretty bad. It falls off pretty quickly. But one thing I really did appreciate about this movie is that it really does have affection for the original. It's not just trying to cash in on name recognition. The writer said, we like the story, we can really do something with it, but let's do it a little bit differently. It's as much of a story about Billy's internal struggle as it is about these killings that are happening. So high body count, lots of Easter eggs. It even had some Black Christmas Easter eggs, which I loved. And it was funny because I went with my husband, and he's really not a horror guy. He's more of a horror comedy guy. Give him American Werewolf in London, Tucker and Dale versus Evil. He's happy. But he ended up really enjoying this one, and he picked up on the Black Christmas references. So I guess that's another point in its favor where someone who's not really a huge genre fan really enjoyed it. There's one aspect in how everything was tied together that I didn't care for, but that honestly was really just an aesthetic thing. It wasn't because of what actually happened. There were just some, I guess, visuals I thought were kind of hokey. But again, solid movie. And, if they can keep this up, hopefully a solid franchise to follow. It is a little hard to do like a non-spoiler review of this one because A, you already know the story going into it. And also, I don't really want to spoil anything about the things that they changed, the way that they changed them. If you're at all familiar with Silent Night, Deadly Night, you'll probably have a good time. This will probably be one of my shorter videos, but I do appreciate you sticking around. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. All of that helps me out a lot. The next video I should have up will be breaking down Black Christmas and the 2 remakes that followed it. And then I need to get on my top 10 movies of the year. I haven't even looked at my list yet, so I really have to get going on that. So I hope you stay safe no matter how you do or don't celebrate this time of year. I will see you in the next one, and remember, like what you like, don't be a dick, and empathy is a superpower. Naughty.